Have you ever wondered why some experiences, say at a hotel or a restaurant, feel absolutely amazing, and others are just a complete disaster? Well, I can tell you, it is not an accident. There's actually a secret playbook that companies are using to manage all of this. And today we are going to pull back the curtain on the hidden rules that shape these experiences every single day. All right, let's get into it.
So, let's kick things off with a big question. Why does buying something like a vacation feel so much riskier, so much more uncertain than just buying a t-shirt? I mean, think about it. You can't see it, you can't touch it, you definitely can't try it on first. And that fundamental difference is exactly why service marketing needs its own special set of rules.
In this slide just lays it all out, right? On one side, you have a physical good, like a phone. It's tangible. You can hold it. You can store it on a shelf if you want. And pretty much every single one that comes off the assembly line is identical. A service, though, it's the total opposite. It's intangible. You can't save it for later. And the quality, it can be wildly inconsistent from one time to the next.
Okay, so that brings us to our first major section, the huge challenge of trying to sell something you can't even see. We're about to break down the 4 unique characteristics that make services so incredibly tricky to market. And trust me, understanding these is the key that unlocks the entire playbook.
So first up, we have intangibility. You can't really test drive a college education or get a free sample of a medical procedure before you commit. When you buy a service, you're not actually buying a thing. You're buying a promise. You're buying a performance. It's really an act of faith in the company.
Next, you've got inseparability. Just think about getting a haircut. The service is being produced by the stylist at the exact same moment that you are consuming it. It's not like a car that's built in a factory and then shipped to you weeks later. With services, you, the customer, are right there in the factory, often helping to create the experience yourself. And of course, that leads right into our third point, heterogeneity. You can also call it variability. Because services are delivered by people, for people, no 2 experiences are ever going to be exactly alike. That amazing dinner you had at a restaurant last month might only be so-so this month, depending on the chef, the server, or even the mood you're in.
And finally, there's perishability. And this one is a really big deal for businesses. You can't put a service into inventory. An empty seat on an airplane that's about to take off, or an unsold hotel room for tonight, that's revenue that is lost forever. Once that plane leaves the gate, you can never sell that specific seat again. So, you're a company, and you're facing these 4 massive challenges. It's invisible, it's created and consumed at the same time, it's inconsistent, and it's perishable. How do you even begin to manage all that? Well, it became pretty clear that marketers needed a bigger, better toolkit. And that brings us to the expanded marketing playbook.
You see, the traditional marketing mix, you've probably heard of it, the famous 4 Ps, product, price, place, and promotion, it just wasn't enough. It couldn't handle the unique chaos of services. So marketers basically had to upgrade the playbook by adding 3 brand new Ps, designed specifically for this invisible world.
And here they are, people, process, and physical evidence. Now, if you keep thinking of a service as a live performance, this all makes perfect sense. The people are your actors, the employees who are front and center. The process is the script, it's the choreography of how the service gets delivered. And physical evidence, that's the stage set, the environment, the atmosphere, everything you can see and touch.
Okay, so we've got the toolkit, but now we need to talk about the psychological game. We need to get inside the customer's head because we have to understand one of the most powerful forces in all of service marketing: expectations.
See, every single customer walks into an experience with 2 different levels of expectation. First, there's the desired service. That's what they're really hoping for, the absolute best-case scenario. And then there's the adequate service. That's the minimum they're willing to accept before they get annoyed. The gap between those 2? That's called the zone of tolerance. As long as you land in that zone, you're probably okay.
So here is the whole ballgame, right here. The ultimate goal for any service company is to close what's called the customer gap. And that's simply the difference between what a customer expected to happen and what they perceived actually happened. If their perception meets or, even better, exceeds their expectation, you've got a happy customer. If it falls short, you've got trouble.
So how do you figure out why you have that gap? For that, companies use a framework called the Service Quality Gap Model. You can think of it like a diagnostic tool, an X-ray, that helps a company pinpoint exactly where things went wrong between what they planned internally and what the customer actually experienced.
This model shows 4 potential breaking points inside the company itself. First, there's the knowledge gap. That's when you just don't understand what your customers really want. Then, the policy gap.
You might know what they want, but you don't design the right processes to give it to them. After that is the delivery gap. You have the right plan, but your employees don't execute it correctly. And finally, the communication gap. This is when your ads promise the world, but the reality doesn't even come close.
Now, let's switch gears and talk about how the really great companies build amazing value. They don't just sell you one core thing. They surround it with a whole bunch of other supporting services that make the entire experience better. There's a really cool concept for this called the flower of service.
And wow, this visual just makes it so clear. At the very center, you have the core service, like a room at a hotel. But the petals of the flower, that's where the magic is. Those are the supplementary services that make it great. Things like providing helpful information, making billing super easy, offering friendly hospitality, or taking care of special requests. These details are what turn a pretty good experience into an unforgettable one.
But let's be real. No matter how perfect your plan is, sometimes things are just going to go wrong. A flight will get delayed, a restaurant will mess up your order. So what happens then? What happens in the final act, when the service fails?
This is where things get really counterintuitive. A service failure isn't just a problem to be solved. It's actually a massive opportunity. And as this quote says, if you handle a complaint the right way, you can turn a furious customer into someone who is even more loyal than they were before anything went wrong. It's what they call a moment of truth.
And the smartest companies, they have a service recovery playbook ready to go. It boils down to 4 key steps. First, a real, sincere apology. Second, a super fast response. Third, offer some kind of fair compensation, maybe a refund or a discount. And fourth, and this is so important, empower your frontline employees to solve the problem right there on the spot without having to run and get a manager.
Now, you might be thinking, okay, this is all just about keeping one customer happy. But when you zoom out, the impact is absolutely massive. Why does getting this right matter so much? Well, take a look at this. In so many economies across the globe, like India here, the service sector is the biggest piece of the entire economic pie. We're talking over half the GDP. Mastering services isn't just a good business strategy. It's an economic imperative.
And mastering it all comes down to a really delicate balance. To tie all these ideas together, marketers often use a model called the service marketing triangle. It shows that real success only happens when everything is aligned. The company makes promises to its customers. That's external marketing. Then it has to enable its employees to actually deliver on those promises. That's internal marketing. And the magic, the moment of truth, happens in what we call interactive marketing, that real-time connection between employees and customers.
So let's bring it all home. What are the big ideas you got to remember from this whole playbook? First, services are not things. They are intangible performances. Second, to manage that performance, you need the expanded toolkit, the 7 Ps. Third, success is all about one thing, closing that critical gap between what a customer expects and what they actually get. And finally, never forget that a failure isn't the end. It's a golden opportunity to build incredible loyalty.
And that leaves me with one final thought for you, a little bit of a challenge. The next time you're out there, at a bank, on a customer support call, at a coffee shop, and you have a fantastic or a truly terrible experience, just stop and see if you can spot the playbook in action. Can you see the people, the process, and the physical evidence that are all working together to shape how you feel? Because now you know the secrets.